why you couldn't do any of those three, you know, and we really just went after him hammer and tong for several years before we finally got a bill through. And it's real interesting, that bill was held up at the last minute in the United States Senate. Ralph Yarborough was a senator, and Clinton Anderson was chairman of the Interior and Insular Affairs Committee of the Senate. And Ralph Yarborough explained to me that the reason he wouldn't let the bill go on is because the Pueblo tribes of New Mexico were opposed to this recognition because these people were brujos, witches, and had helped the Spaniards during the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. And Ralph explained to me that it took a bottle of good whiskey and a whole evening of cajoling and arm twisting to get Clinton Anderson to recognize the fact that even if the Pueblos in the north believed that, these people still deserved assistance and help. And he was persuaded by Ralph to let the bill go on the floor of the Senate. Word passed, and Lyndon Johnson, of course, signed the legislation and recognized the tribe, which immediately activated the state assistance, which was so necessary for them to survive.
The most important of these, of course, was to have, to us, was to have the other Pueblos recognize us, since we're Pueblo people. The first step in doing that was to go to Ysleta Pueblo, New Mexico, to our original mother Pueblo, and say, you know, do you still recognize us as Pueblos, as Indians in general, as Pueblos more specifically, and as Ysleta very specifically? And to do that, one of the things we did, we talked to them about the history, and we talked to them about our tribal government, and we talked to them about, you know, all this stuff. And a lot of it was, yes, that is Ysleta, but a lot of it are things that maybe you, as a non-Indian, could have gone and read in a book. Anybody could put together a tribal government on paper. But when it came down to really an understanding, what we did is we went and brought the tribal elders and the tribal council from Ysleta, New Mexico here, and had them talk to our tribal leaders and our elders on a one-to-one basis and on a group basis, and exchange information. And then we talked to them about religion and culture and those things which not only another Indian but another Pueblo, but specifically another Ysleta would know about. And if you ever read the resolution that was issued by the Pueblo of Ysleta, they were very specific about the fact that they recognized this Pueblo as having maintained their tradition and religious values and cultural values intact over those 300 and some years. And that we were not only Indian, that we were Pueblo and very specifically Ysleta.
But the tribe did, well, the tribal council, I should say, I shouldn't say the tribe because it was never put out to the tribe. It was just the tribal council here at that time, and probably whoever the governor was at that time said, yeah, we'll support them, and say that, yeah, we recognize them as our distant relatives or whatever, and that they did actually come from here at one time in their history. I don't know, I understand, I asked one of the attorneys from NARF, how did they deal with blood quantum? How did they actually identify who was a Tiwa?
We know we're part of the Pueblo family. We know we're Ysleta. And I would love to sit here and tell you that every Pueblo, and specifically that every Ysleta, totally accepts this place and us. But I'd be lying to you. They don't. If we had absolute 100% acceptance, it would be tremendous. But the reality is that it's not.
When we were federally recognized, it was something great for our tribe because we were noticed for being Indians, which is what we originally were. On the other hand, we had already established our community. When we were federally recognized, that was when we were issued monies for housing, to run different programs, the health programs that we have now, the alcoholism programs, all these other different kinds of programs that we have.
Pueblo-style housing was built adjacent to the old barrio. Many of the 1,400 tribe members now live here. Once recognition brings entitlements, the important question is no longer, are the Tiguas Indians, but who belongs to the tribe?
There's two different measures. One is that measure which the federal government imposes on us as a price, I guess, if you want to call it that, for the services and for the recognition of the tribe. And that is that we have to set a blood quantum, we have to set a limit and say everybody above so much is Indian and everybody below this point is not. In terms of the Tiguas, it happens to be 1/8, which was what was negotiated and agreed with the federal government, that you had to be at least 1/8 Tiwa to be enrolled in the tribe. Then the other one, though, and I think the more important one to us, is those people who live, think, hold the values of, and function as a Tiwa, as an Ysleta Del Sur Pueblo Indian. And they're not always the same. You know, we've got people who if you went down the measures, are, you know, 1/32 or 1/16 or 1/8 or whatever, who are probably more Indian in their way of thinking and in their minds, and people who are 3/4 or full blood. In terms of what we recognize as members of the tribe, we recognize those people who function, who think, who understand, who hold those value systems. In terms of what we can accept for legal purposes, we have to stick to the legal definition, which is 1/8.
When the state started giving us grants and federal assistance and housing and school and doctors and stuff, they were like city Indians. They had heard about all these things that were happening to the Tiguas, so they went into their family tree and checked it out to see if they had any kind of blood, you know, in that tree. And then they came and claimed, you know, so much that their grandfather or their aunt or somebody in the family had Tigua blood in them.
It's not the Indian in your blood that counts, it's the Indian in your heart.
One of the most important things I learned is that there's a difference between being Indian and being of Indian descent. When I first started going around the different Indian houses, Pablo Silvas and Mike Pedraza would tell me, the next house we're going to go to, there's a real Indian living there. And I'd see some guy that looked like Cortez. You know, it looked like he was a Spaniard grandee, you know. And I began to realize that they were differentiating between Indians and real Indians on a different basis than I would have. And then it finally dawned on me what they're talking about. They were talking about who believes in being an Indian, who believes in the power of the drum, who believes in the authority of the cacique, who believes in the tribal ceremonies.
Somewhere between this spiritual sense of being Indian and the statistical device of blood quantum numbers, the people's knowledge of kinship also plays a role in determining identity.
Everybody seems to know everybody. I'm a health representative for the Tigua tribe, and when I go door to door, I will, they'll see me and, you know, the elders ask who you are, who your grandfather is, and who your parents are. And that's how they know you. I'm known as Johnny's little girl, or Susana's granddaughter. I'm not known as Priscilla in the community.
Our last name is Silvas, right? So anybody that Silvas knows the tradition. We know that they know because they know we're that close. And on my mom's side, Granillo, you know. So all the Granillos, you know, we know that they know this tradition.
It's just like one big family here. Everybody's related to everybody else one way or the other.
This is a small community, and just about everybody's related to one another in one form or another. Several things happen. Is one, marriage. There's very few options here for young people as far as marriage goes, you know, to try to keep the bloodlines intact.
I used to go around telling people that when I was younger, I used to tell them, well, you know, if I marry a non